Welcome to the third series of SSI's Freedom Sessions. My name's Shyamla and I'll be your host. And together we'll be exploring the work, culture, minds and hearts of local artists. First and foremost, I would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people, the traditional owners and custodians of the unceded lands and waters we are bringing these sessions to you from at the Australian National Maritime Museum. The Freedom Sessions is an initiative by Settlement Services International through its Arts and Culture program. It has been running since 2020 as a response to the pandemic and to provide an accessible platform for migrant, refugee and First Nations artists. Each session has been developed in collaboration with the artists themselves, which means they have set the agenda and will be discussing and showcasing what matters to them most. So, sit back, relax, and join me as they share their journeys through life and art.
I celebrate to get closer to you. We celebrate every moment of truth. A candy day is what you've turned into. An endless take for an eternal you. To have freedom, let it wash away our sanity. We've got freedom, only true for the love set you free, will set you free. Will set you free. Gravitate towards movements of truth. What does it take? I want to be a me. The world today is not based on our truth. We confiscate innocence as we lose. take us higher, higher, higher truth. Respect, take us higher, higher, higher truth. Respect, take us higher, higher, higher truth. Respect, take us higher, higher, higher.
What was that? What an incredible opening. And can I just say, that all happened live. There was no crew. That was all you. You are a walking, talking music video ready to shoot. Like, all you need to do is put cameras on you.
Thank you. You're very kind.
So we have here Dyan Tai, who is self-described as the Asian Empress of the gay streets of Sydney. So Malaysian-born, you're a musician, performance artist, DJ. You're so many more things too. You're a seamstress. You're just the concept. You can just see how much thought's been put into everything you've done. I'm guessing you've probably made most of what you're wearing.
I actually did not make this. Sorry to ruin the fantasy. So this skirt is actually designed by Erin Carroll from Not So Boring, and then this top is by a local queer designer named Yukana.
Amazing. So you're actually, what you're wearing is made by local queer artists as well.
Well, Yukana's queer, and yeah, so I love, I just love their work so much. But this face is me. I did this face myself.
And that is also an art form as well. How long does this take?
It took about 1.5 hours to 2 hours today. Because for me, like when I started performing, it's really interesting because I've always been a musician, but I felt very comfortable in drag and cabaret spaces, and then I started doing drag, and I feel like the best way for me to express myself in drag is to bring my culture and have that Chinese operatic influence through my look.
It's so beautiful to see your culture represented in your drag.
Thank you. And I feel like for me, it's also a moment where like I want people to know that drag has actually existed in so many cultures for so long, and it's not something that is just because it's popular now, it's not something that just happened, it's existed in so many cultures. Like, in China, people used to perform, Chinese operatic makeup, and I'm sure in your culture as well.
Absolutely. And drag's a very normalized part. Like in a lot of our traditional art forms, it was originally, quite a few of them were done by men. So the men would always cross-dress for the female roles, and it wasn't a thing.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
So Dyan was recently awarded the prestigious 2021-2022 Generations Music Fellowship. So that's a partnership by Create New South Wales, the Powerhouse Museum, and I think Astral People?
Astral People, yeah. They are an incredible, inclusive Australian record label and touring company, and I've had the privilege of meeting Tom and Vic and the entire team at Astro, and we've been doing monthly mentoring session with them. It's probably the biggest thing. And I maybe it's like in us ethnics, you can't completely acknowledge, and like sometimes I still can't believe I got the the fellowship and the financial support from the Powerhouse Museum. Yeah.
And what has that done for your practice?
Oh my God, like it's changed me. It really has. Like I feel, because to think that this fellowship was only for 6 months, it has really completely changed the way I look at the industry. It's changed the way I pursue my music. I feel like I'm more fearless and authentic to myself. And most importantly, music, I've always been a musician, but music scared me. Being in the music industry and unsigned independent artist, like I still am now. When I first started, it's always like, me against like everyone else, because you feel like you're like this one person and it gets a bit lonely. And for me at that time,
yeah, we know.
yeah, and for me, like always being a musician and then trying to do music, trying to be a pop star here,
And there's so much setup. Like, you come with fans and a lot of gear and a lot of equipment, and you didn't have a roadie. You're doing all that by yourself. You're booking yourself. Your performance art is so comprehensive. There's so much to it.
Yeah, being self-managed and like, you know, let's not even talk about how much money you spend.
Let's not have that conversation.
Yeah, but
you
you
gotta
know what?
love art. You've got to love what you do to be an artist.
It scared me, but more because of the industry scared me. I was always like, I didn't see a lot of people of color and not a lot of queer people. And someone in radio had once said to me, I don't think Australia's ready for a gay Asian pop star. And so comments like that, it really scared me. I actually went away. That's when I started doing drag and I perform in cabaret spaces because I found that really welcoming. But at the same time, I still, every time, even though it was a drag spot, I always would sing and I would always make my own music, even though they're like cover songs. That's actually how I learned how to produce music.
So all your music is self-produced as well?
Yes, I produce all of my music, every single track, the drums, like keys, bass, everything.
All right, I think we need to list at this point. So self-produce, but each of the tracks, you're not just sampling, you're actually playing all those instruments.
Yeah, I play everything and I produce electronic music. I record my own vocals. I mean, I do work with an audio engineer who would put things together, but it's always put together from scratch by myself. And it's always like, hey, I've got this, cabaret spot on Friday. I'm going to do a new song. And then you end up spending like 3 to 4 days making the song, and like that gig would pay like $100, So it's really tough, but that was for me like a really good way to learn going into drag and cabaret. But since going back to the fellowship, it's made me realize that, hey, you know what? Like when I wasn't 100% in believing myself, Astro people, the Powerhouse Museum, Create New South Wales saw something in me.
Which are all really big entities as well, so...
Yeah, I was to be selected, handpicked for the fellowship. It changed me. It changed the way I look at things. And for me right now, like, I'm ready to seriously pursue music again, but I'm not going to lose the drag and the cabaret. So I'm going to bring that with me. Because I've also always felt like those things... If you look at like straight, like, if you're just looking at straight up music, live music, you don't always see those things. So I've always felt like people might not take me seriously because I, come dressed like this and I do all of that.
You're a whole show. You're a whole production. Like, and you do it yourself without needing anyone else. It's exceptional.
That's what I've learned to appreciate. And one of the first things that I said to Astro people, Tom and Vic, was I said to them that I always feel like a bit out of place, even as a musician, going back into music and having all these elements is I've been told that live music's not like this. And they're like, you know what, especially after, they said to me, especially after COVID, the audience actually, they want something different.
Yeah, exactly.
People want something different. So that put a lot of faith in me, and I really appreciate my time with Astro, and this whole fellowship has changed me, and I'm ready.
Yeah, you so
I'm
are.
ready.
You so are. And the song that we saw you perform was Freedom. So tell us a bit about Freedom. You said it was written at the end of 2020, and what we're all talking about here, the uniting of all these different aspects of your arts and I feel like your ancestors, I can feel it. Your ancestors are here with you. So you doing that is like calling them to come through you. And it's like, this one was it an operatic Chinese singer probably?
Yeah, maybe, because my parents and my sister used to DJ, but my parents are not musical at all. So I don't know, maybe somewhere you know, one of my
Well, here
ancestors.
she is.
I don't know.
Whoever she is. Yeah.
Yeah, so freedom, you know, now that you mention that track was my coming back into the music industry, and Astral people said to me they actually chose me after seeing that music video. And for me, that was a big moment because it was very, very important to me. It was more than just the music. For me, freedom was about uniting the queer Asian community. Yeah, because for me, like the entire cast, all drag, all type of queer Asian performance in various art forms was so important to be represented. Yeah, that's what freedom was all about.
So when you're an independent artist and you come to, you know, something like Astral People, how much autonomy do you still feel like you have?
In terms of my,
do you feel like you've had to compromise at all?
When I was doing the fellowship?
Yeah.
Well, they were really good at guiding me, so they give a lot of industry tips. They made suggestions what songs I should do, but like, you know, with the mentorship and working with the museum, I've actually been fortunate enough to have the space, and I'll be curating a night at the Powerhouse Museum as well.
Which is coming up. Do a little shout out.
Yeah, Powerhouse Museum, where I'll be doing my EP launch. And they've never, Astral people in Powerhouse Museum, they have never like told me this is what you've got to do. I mean, they would make suggestions, but they've never dictated. I still feel like as an artist, I'm very true to myself, and this is the type
That's
of
what
music.
we want to hear. Yeah, especially after going through a program like that, you want to hear that an artist is not being watered down and diluted.
Absolutely. Like for example, I always bring traditional Chinese instruments in my music, like the guzheng, taiko drums, and gamelan, which is a Southeast Asian, commonly found in Malaysia and Indonesia. So I've always used that.
And just to clarify, you're born in Malaysia?
Yes, I was born in Malaysia, but I'm Chinese background. So I've always been surrounded by instruments like that growing up. So I've always used them currently use them in my music, and they've never told me you've got to change and stop. Instead, they've really encouraged that.
So important. And I understand we're going to get to experience that a bit later as well.
Yeah.
Ooh, so good. Well, I think that we are now going to actually play one of your videos, and it's very special to you. It's called Narrative. Can you tell us a bit about Narrative?
Narrative I actually wrote during COVID. I pushed myself because, you know, like a lot of people, the lockdown was very tough for me because I'm a working DJ. So all of that taking away, no access to community and like nightlife. So Narrative I wrote during the lockdown is, I love this track because it's actually about reclaiming your identity and reclaiming your narrative. Especially the music video is even more important because it's by this incredible 3D Asian Australian artist called Jun Lee, and Jun Lee is so incredible, and I can't believe he remodeled, because I actually during lockdown my dad sent me footage of my ancestor home in China, which I actually still haven't visited. I don't think my dad's visited either. But I discovered that footage and I was like, this is so important. Like, people like to ask you where you come from, and that's like where I come from. So I wanted to make a piece about that, and Jun Lee remodeled that in 3D.
All right. Well, I think let's watch it and then we can talk about it afterwards once everyone has gotten to see it, because it's really special. This is Narrative.
Sometimes I like you, sometimes I don't know what to say. Sometimes I'm curious and question why I feel this way. I want to walk away, don't want to lose faith, and don't want to forsake. I wonder my narrative is up this way. So much power inside my veins. I
delicious. I felt like we took a trip through time, and we must have, because now what was white is now black.
Oh, we had an outfit change.
Wow.
A sneaky outfit change.
That was so sneaky of you. Tell us about Narrative.
A narrative, like I was saying, it was actually produced during lockdown. And I'm actually really proud of this track because I recorded my own vocals for this song.
Wow.
Because I usually go to the studio, but because we were in lockdown, I recorded my own vocals. Super proud of it.
Like at home?
At home during lockdown when everyone else was at home. Yeah, so this song, like this, especially the last line, there's so much power inside my veins. I own my narrative, and my narrative is not yours to claim. So for me, this song, it's I needed this song to empower myself and to empower other people as well.
And I love how using the word narrative can be any aspect of your being. It could be, you know, and the intersections between them as well, because we saw a lot of your ancestry. Tell us about that feast scene at the end.
Yeah, so I wanted to once again shout out to the 3D artist Jun Lee. He's Chinese Australian as well, and we spoke about So Jun Lee. So we spoke about like reunion dinner, so which is very common during Lunar New Year. So on Lunar New Year Eve, family from all around the world would gather, immediate family members would gather and have dinner together. And that's something that I didn't have because of COVID, and it would usually be an annual thing, and he didn't manage to get, have the reunion dinner as well. So we wanted to bring that in the music video.
It's amazing. And I'm really interested to know about your experience of migrating to Sydney, how you came, why you came, when it happened. Tell us about that journey.
Yeah, thanks for asking me this question, because a lot of people know that I grew up in Malaysia, but a lot of people also, I've never really spoken about this. So thanks for asking me this question. So I was actually an international student for a very long time. Growing up in Malaysia, I've always known that, there's something very queer about me, and like grew up listening to Spice Girls and Britney Spears. And I just knew that Malaysia, I love Malaysia. I love like my family's there. I love the culture, I love the people, but it wasn't like where I wanted to, as a queer person, it's not safe, and I won't be able to express myself like this and my art and my music. So I worked really hard to pursue that outside the country. And I actually got a scholarship. I worked really, really hard, and I came to Australia on a scholarship. And see, this is the thing that people do not understand. Some people don't get, because you just look at international students like they're aliens, or they're like this foreign person from like this country, but like a lot of them have gone through a lot, and some families have to like put their houses and properties on mortgage so their kids could come to Australia
for that opportunity.
For higher education, so they can either start a better life in Australia, or they can have the degree and go home and like be with the family. So a lot of these families go through a lot. And you know what? If I did not get that scholarship, I would not have been able to. We would not be sitting here right now.
Aww.
So
well, we're so glad that you did, and I think we can see why you got it. You are so talented and creative, and I think Australia is really, really lucky to have you.
Thank you. Yeah, but the thing is, it was really, for me, it was a big culture shock as well, coming here as an international student, because you would have this perception. And I think for me, like a lot of, I can't speak for everyone, because I didn't leave Malaysia until I came here. So this is, moving to Australia was the first time I left the country.
So the first time you left the country was to move to another one?
Yes.
Wow. That's terrifying.
It was very scary.
And how old were you?
I was like maybe like 18 or 19 at that time. And and people would usually see, like, for example, if at uni, you would see big groups of international students, and sometimes, like, people would say, yeah, like, all the Asians hang out together or whatever. But, like, the thing is, like, it's really scary to move here, and you have to find a community of people who
understand you and where you're coming from.
Exactly. So, like, I did have my group of Asians when I came here, and...
Did you have the intersection of queerness and Asian?
I actually came out here.
Wow.
I came out here. But coming out is a totally different story of what my perception of being a queer person in Australia would be growing up, and then coming here and experiencing that. That is, a totally different topic, but we can talk about that as well.
I would love to hear about that.
Yeah. But coming back to being an international student, it's really hard when, I think the thing, this is me when my brain as an 18, 19-year-old, I would see all of my local friends get concession tickets for public transport because they're students. But I'm a student as well. But I had to pay full price every time I get on the bus. So, just things like that really, like,
add up,
annoyed me.
Yeah.
Because we're students first, international second, and, like, that's something that I just couldn't completely understand. And then and I did feel like I was working so hard, but I feel like that experience, like, made me work. Even with my music, I bring those ethics across. Like, I had to work so hard, where, like, I could see some of my friends who are locals. You can sort of, like, they get, like, what do you call that? HECS, and they get Aus study, and I didn't have any of that. I had to.
So how was it funded? All through the scholarship?
The scholarship, let me tell you, the scholarship came with like $1,000 a month.
Wow.
And my rent at that time was
enough.
like $220 a week.
Yeah.
So rent alone per month was like $900. And I remember, so I was doing my degree, trying to do music, honors degree in the lab, and I had to work. I worked as a sandwich artist. I'm a certified sandwich artist. So I worked
bet
at
you
Subway.
make the prettiest sandwiches too. I bet you they were like picture perfect.
I worked at Max Brenner.
I'm picturing your sandwich with like
oh my God.
material in the background and fans like blowing the lettuce in the wind.
Oh my
no?
gosh. Well, I did all of that to support myself.
Yeah.
And a lot of international students have to work so hard. And the thing is, people also, like, you get into situations in hospitality where, because you're an international student, people don't pay you full rates.
Wow.
That's the other thing, right? Because
when you go to
I'll
work
just pay you.
for them.
I mean, I was lucky. Obviously, when I worked at Subway and Max Brenner, they paid correctly. But then they're like, people who are like, oh yeah, let's just pay you cash and you just make like close to nothing.
So it just sounds like you're just like slipping through all the different systems and
survive.
Yeah, to survive.
To survive.
And what support is there for you?
Not much, not much. And then the journey of then becoming a permanent resident, and then I've recently become an Australian citizen.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So that's another really big thing. Like, it just takes so long. Look, I've always known, I'm proud of where I come from in Malaysia. I love my family and everything, but I know this is where I call home. This is my community. But even becoming an Australian, that the process, my mom got sick, right? And I had to go home and become a primary carer. But because I left the country for a year and a half, and you're not supposed to leave for more than 12 months, I had to restart the 4-year waiting period.
Oh my goodness.
So when I came back in 2016, I had to do the 4 years all over again, even though I've been here for like over 10 years.
So how long did it take you to get your citizenship?
In the end, I finally got it after like 13 years of living in Australia.
And how do you feel? Like, I mean, how do you feel through that time? And you're making art through this time, but you're just struggling to even be here, right?
Yeah, no, I was a permanent resident, you know, which I was very fortunate. Look, I'm actually really grateful. I don't want to sound like I'm complaining. I'm actually very grateful to be here. And every day when I wake up in the morning, I'm really grateful because I'm doing things that a lot of people can't, where I grew up in Malaysia, can't do.
And that you don't feel like you could have even done there.
Yeah, so I'm very grateful. And when I was a permanent resident, I, you know, obviously had the benefits and I had Medicare and everything. I just could not vote. Yeah, then I became an Australian citizen and now I can vote. So, but in overall, I feel blessed to be here, but it hasn't been an easy journey. Yeah.
Well, I think we're ready to see another exceptional performance. And the next one you're going to do is Unholy Monkey into Nightlife Medley. Can you tell us? I am so excited because I got to see this live and you blew the roof off the Red Rattler. And it was at your own event.
Yeah, so Unholy Monkey and Nightlife, they're both tracks from my new EP called Empress.
Amazing.
So Unholy Monkey, it's usually performed in a cabaret setting as Monkey King. So through drag, I get transformed into Monkey King, and I'm sure if we can share some footage of that, that would be great.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
So usually it's performed as Monkey King if the space allows it, with like contortion, aero acrobatics, and 3D projection art as well. But I'm gonna do it slightly different for you.
I think we're ready. Unholy Monkey.
This song is called Unholy Monkey. Walk on by, walk on by. Spend many nights in solitude to get close to you, and give anything to get over you by. Walk on by, walk on by. You're everywhere, but I ghost to you. If you want the truth, that's why I wanted you to keep you close by.
I'm unholy for sure. I'm unholy for sure. If I'm unholy, honey, surely you got me pure. I'm unholy for sure. I'm unholy for sure. If I'm unholy, honey, surely you got me pure. I'm unholy for sure. I'm unholy for sure. If I'm unholy, honey, surely you got me pure. I'm unholy for sure. I'm unholy for sure. If I'm unholy.
Into the dark, lying crying into your arms. Into the dark, when the world is falling apart. Hey, hey, don't lean no closer to me. I can't desire. Some find it easy to see. It's getting lighter. It's getting harder to breathe. What makes a fighter? I'm not a fighter. Tonight's the night. I know it's hard, but I sacrifice. Liberate me.
love the night long. I love the night long.
I like the nightlife too, dear. And that was incredible.
Thank you.
You
Thank
took
you
us
very
on
much.
such a, like, I feel like, where did we just go?
You know, I feel like I was summoning my ancestors and all my past demons because I, you know, use a vocal effect processor and I just feel like a spirit. It feels like a spiritual experience for me.
It feels like a spiritual experience for us too. Like the whole crew here were just like, you know, we were there for it. Just going on that journey with you. Thank you so much.
No, you're very welcome.
Now, that first track, Unholy Monkey, I actually had the absolute pleasure of seeing you perform live at one of your events, and you run these events through Worship Queer Collective. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I am the founder and creator of Worship Queer Collective. So alongside Red Ray and DJ Red Ray, we are a queer Asian artist-led and community-driven collective. And we produce events that are inclusive, arts and culture events to, like, you know, where we can bring queerness and now Asianness together in the same room at an inclusive, safe space and celebrate that. Because, I mean, for a lot of queer Asian artists, like for myself, when I first started performing, and still sometimes feel that I tend to be the only queer Asian person in the room. So that's when we started, and then people would say, I didn't know that there are other people that we can book. And then then we started this collective and we grew. All of our performers identify as queer and Asian, and we...
How many are in the collective, by the way?
At the moment, there's me, Red Ray.
Yep.
We also have a resident chef, Ann and Ray. They're called Auntie Wombat.
Auntie Wombat.
Yeah, Auntie
Yum,
Wombat.
delicious vegan, just goodness.
Yeah, and we're really excited about a World Pride event called Doncha Wishu Yamcha. Once again, it's about a celebration of food and culture and
Very
Asian
clever.
Yeah,
That's
Asianness.
amazing. Yeah. All right. So, in amongst all the things you do, you also DJ all around town. And the next thing we're going to see is a video called Expiratory. And this came out of an experience, an interaction that you had when you were DJing. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so this song, Expiratory, was written at the start of the COVID pandemic when we didn't have any cases in Australia. And people were referencing it as like the Chinese virus or like the virus from China, and Chinese people have it and we eat bats. And like, you remember, like people would say that we have bats for like our meals. So this song was written during that time because I was DJing at a club and I finished around like 3 or 4. And it was a queer event. And then I left, I was walking out, and then this like white guy came up to me, and I thought, oh, maybe like, initially I thought, oh, maybe he's like interested in me. But when I turned around, he was like, dude, have you got the coronavirus? And I was like, what the hell? And he just started laughing with his mates and like, you know, just then this disappeared. And I just stood there. And I was actually really mad at myself. Like,
but you don't know, when things like that happen, they're so shocking, you just get paralyzed.
yeah, I wish I had said something, but I didn't because it just came out of nowhere. It gives you no time to react. And you know, I'm also glad I didn't because for my
that
safety.
may not, exactly, it's not a safe situation
Yeah,
for you.
probably shouldn't have done that. So, which then I realized that a lot of queer spaces, they're meant to be, you know, not all queer spaces are safe and inclusive. Some are the most racist, vile, transphobic.
Yeah, I will only go to queer BIPOC events if that intersection is not there, then whatever is there does not represent me at all.
Absolutely. Like when I first, and it really affected me because when I first, spaces like that, when I first came out, all I had was Oxford Street. It was very cis, gay, white men.
Male, yeah.
Yeah. And that was my experience. And it was so, it really affected me even to this day, right? Just coming out in that type of environment, dealing with, sexual racism. We can talk a bit more about this. Like, growing up in Malaysia, I've always realized there's a certain privilege being a lighter-skinned Asian person.
Colorism. Yep.
And I was well aware of my privilege, and then coming here, you're all just Asians, and you're like suddenly you're like not as attractive anymore, and that really crushed my confidence, and it took me a very long time. When you're like 18 and 19, you just came out, and that's the kind of stuff you face. It's very hurtful, and sexual racism is very real in the community. I will always remember, like, when I first came out, there's when Grindr was very popular as well. Like, and people would say things like, no rice, no spice. Yeah, on their profile, no Asians, no, like, Indians or whatever.
I've heard the same thing from my queer brown friends as well within the, like, queer gay male community.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of that still exists, but people are not so like in your face, but doesn't mean that people are not sexually racist anymore.
Yeah.
Because the other thing is I was in a really bad relationship where I was dating a white person and a white guy, and then he ended up, this is for another segment, but he turned out to be a pathological liar and a con artist. Again, for another segment, but the most hurtful thing someone has ever said to me, he said it to me when I discovered all his lies, and we were in Asia at that time, and I dumped his sorry ass, but I still felt responsible because I was trying to save him, and he didn't have any money. And I left him on the streets and and drove off. But before I drove off, I said, I was really worried. I was like, will you be okay? And this is the most hurtful thing that anyone has ever said to me. So, before closing the door, he was like, I'm a blue-eyed, blonde-haired white boy in Asia. Don't you worry about me. I will have no problem at all here.
So aware of his privilege.
Yeah, so when people say, like, oh, like, sexual racism, like, everyone has types, but, like, racism is about power and oppression. Who has the power in that relationship? And that really affected how I look at people and romance and relationships, because, especially dating someone who is white, it takes a long time for me to build that trust.
Yeah.
But again, this is for another segment.
Oh, thank you for sharing. These are stories that we haven't had on Freedom Sessions before. So, and that's the point as well, is so that artists are not just reduced to their art. We actually understand their lived experiences that inform it. So thank you for sharing very personal and painful experiences with us. And I feel like Expiratory, which is what we're going to see now, really does sum that up. So thank you. Expiratory.
Please help me breathe. Oh, please help me breathe, my love. I'll help
you see my love. From a distance when you gaze on me, I respond to you so innocently. Please help me, don't you need me? It ain't easy, but you can breathe. From a distance when you take a breath in, I respond and let you hold your breath in, and I'll help you see will be. It ain't easy, nothing sleeps. I know I caught you off guard, but you can breathe around me. Sweet summer day, I'm searching, our memories fade, my love. Memories fade, my love. It's not a race, baby. I'll take it with grace, my love. From afar, you're a grace my skin. Everyone arranged meticulously. Please help me see I'm worthy. I'm at your mercy, so I can breathe. From afar, I see you take a breath in. I get close and watch you hold your breath in. Just 'cause it's cold and hurting, I don't want to try so hard. You don't have to make it hard. I know I caught you off guard, but you can breathe around me. Expiratory, expiratory.
So beautiful how you've turned an experience like that into a piece of art like that.
Thank you.
And does that help you to process when things like that happen by expressing it through your art?
Yeah, I suppose with a lot of my music, it's really about, you know, the queer Asian identity and the narrative, you know, because for me it's about like, for me I always think about my music and my performances as ways to empower people, empower myself. Because, you know, I feel like as artists, as performers, your craft, I always think of them as your spiritual responsibility. And, you know, I mean, I do love writing a silly pop song every now and then, but it's about like what message, how can I potentially make someone's life better through my music and through my art.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'd love to hear what you've got coming up because I know that can you say it? Because it's just such a great pun. Don't you wish your young child was?
So, you know, we've got an incredible event coming up as part of Sydney World Pride called Doncha Wish You Yamcha. So it's a sit-down Dragon Dine style cabaret show where we have a 100% queer Asian excellent cast. Some of them traveled from interstate to Sydney during World Pride. We've got 5 sessions during World Pride. So the tickets include vegan, freshly handmade yumcha delicacies, and with live music, pole, aero acrobatics, and all of that.
I think we're seeing that now on the screen. Wow, that was incredible.
Yeah, so for me, you know, events like this, they're so important because, you know, I always think of creative ways where how can we bring people together, bring culture and various art forms together, and food as well, because you learn so much about culture through food, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm actually really grateful because Doncha Wishu Yamcha managed to secure funding from Sydney World Pride to be part of the official arts program for next year. And it's so important for organizations. You know, if anyone who is listening right now, if you're in a position where you can contribute funds or like be part of a change, it's so important for organizations to support community events, especially marginalized communities. You know, queer, people of color, culturally, linguistically diverse is so important because, you know, Worship Queer Collective, we've only been around for a year. We've produced like 3 or 4 sold out events, but none of those events would have been possible. For example, for Lunar New Year, if we didn't receive a grant, we would not have been able to hire a line dance crew. And that's such an important part of Lunar New Year. You know, without World Pride's funding, we wouldn't have been able to fly performers from Melbourne, Brisbane, and, you know, and Canberra as well to be part of such a historic moment where we have queer Asian cast from across Australia.
And the thing is, we know what to do with the money. Just give it to us. There are all these little collectives popping up, I think, across communities, and they really need funding and support.
Yeah.
In an ongoing and in a sustainable way.
Yeah, I would say, like, if you are in a position where you can be part of the change, look at organizations, collective and groups who are trying to make a difference. And through their work, you know, some of them are already making a difference in the community.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I understand your EP is happening. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So I just released my my EP called Empress.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And once again, this would not have been successful without Create New South Wales' very generous arts and cultural funding. This is why we're saying we need to give money to like the queer POC, culturally linguistically diverse artists, because this album is all about, this EP is all about the identity, is all about reclaiming those things. So I just released the Empress EP, and you've heard some of those tracks here tonight on, you know, live. So for me, that's going back into music, this is the best way with the fellowship and people around me supporting me. It's the best way to release and get back into the music industry. But I've got a lot more releases planned, and it's all, you know, part of the project that has been enabled by Create New South Wales. So there'll be a lot more music for me in the future. But for now, we've got the Empress EP, and I hope you enjoyed those tracks.
Oh, absolutely. And you can get it on Spotify. What's the best
Spotify,
way?
Apple Music.
Spotify, Apple Music. And this is our last performance now. I'm not ready. You took us to so many different places, but this one is called We Can't Forget.
Yeah, this one is very special for me. All of my songs are very special for me because the music video for We Can't Forget was filmed at the Powerhouse Museum. And I knew that the 6-month residency, it really changed my life, and I wasn't ready to leave. So we actually shot the music video at the Powerhouse Museum, and we transformed the industrial grungy outdoor space into an outdoor rave with like pink purple lights. And the best part of it, I was able to invite my community along. So everyone that you see in the music video, they actually, you know, they've been in some way been involved with Worship Queer Collective, and I've been able to support them, and you know they've also supported me as well. So,
well, I think we're ready to experience We Can't Forget.
you would have noticed, yeah, I'd always do. Am I a burden? Ain't got a clue. Is it my misfortune? When I first saw you, you said, babe, I'm sorry, just not into you. Come on, baby, tell me when you say it like that, what it means for me, can forgive and forget. Come on, baby, tell me when you say it like that, can forget, can forget. Come on, baby, tell me when you say it like that. Years and years go by, I won't forgive and forget. Come on, baby, tell me when you hurt me like that. Won't forget, won't forget, won't forget. Not riding solo like what I'm used to. I see you with your boys, your white boy. Hey, come on, baby, tell me when you say it like that, what it means for me, can forgive and forget. Come on, baby, tell me when you say it like that, can forget, can forget. Come on, baby, tell me when you say it like that. Years and years go by, won't forgive and forget. Come on, baby, tell me when you hurt me like that. Won't forget, won't forget. Alright, this one is for everyone watching online and watching at home. Keep slaying.
Dyan Tai, we can't forget. That was incredible.
Thank you very much.
And what a treat to hear it acoustic, because you have to actually listen to it recorded as well. Very different version and like such a banger. But to see that version of it, thank you so, so much.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. I always feel like, you know, a good pop song can be performed both acoustically, and you need to do things stripped back because it's where like the soul is, right?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming here and sharing your journey and your incredible multidisciplinary, everything multidimensional art with us. It's been such an honor to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. This means a lot to me, so thank you.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Well, there you have it. Dyan Tai, what an incredible session that was. Thank you so much for joining us at home. This is the Freedom Sessions, which is an initiative of Settlement Services International through its arts and culture. We have to thank our partners, Buzz Speaker Hire, our AV and broadcast partner, and this is being held at the Australian National Maritime Museum. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.